Welcome to Agency Acquisitions and Exits. I'm your host, Peter Lang. Today's guest is Ron Johnson, founder of CyberOptic. He started this thing in middle school. He and I first start bonding over our shared love of building websites at young ages, and then we unpack how he's built something rather interesting, not through big headline acquisitions, but by quietly doing 16 small ones. We're talking micro acquisitions. Agencies doing a few hundred to a few thousand a month in recurring revenue, stacked over time. He's essentially built his very own version of micro programmatic M&A. Oh, I love this episode. And he didn't even know to call it that until he met me. He's buying retiring agency owners. People want to move away from their book of business and structuring deals with little to no cash up front. And then turning those small books of business into growing reoccurring revenue engine for his agency. What I like about Ron's stories, it challenges the idea that you need capital, scale, and big deals to get started in M&A. He's doing 1 to 4 acquisitions a year and has a path to do 1 or more a month. So in this episode, you're going to get a practical look at what it actually looks like to start small, learn fast, and compound through acquisitions. Let's dive in. Ron, thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. Stoked to be here.
Most people think M&A means big deals. Okay, you've done 16 acquisitions, and when we prepped, you said these are micro deals. And another fun bit is you didn't even know you were doing it programmatically, or you did, but you didn't know to call it programmatic. So before I overwhelm you with questions around your system, your process for these 16 acquisitions, give us the background. Tell us about the agency, tell us how you got into it, and then we'll talk about your stumbling into that first acquisition.
Yeah, for sure. So, self-taught. I went to school for business and marketing back in the day, but I started CyberOptic when I was in middle school. So I actually lived next to the middle school. It's like out my window over there. So I started in 2002. I was 13, 14, whatever. And it was just online freelance stuff, the same old spiel. Eventually, I got a bit more serious. I actually formed the company name in 2002. And from there, it kind of snowballed. So I've never had, as my dad would say, a real job, underneath someone else. I've always kind of done my own thing. And I just snowballed over the years. So I did we'll get into it, but my first little Acquihire in 2019 to bring somebody full time to help me. And then it's kind of just, it's gone from there. So again, fully self-taught, kind of just learning as I go. And then similar to, when I kind of came across you, the programmatic M&A, I'm like, oh, it has a name. And yeah, there's a lot more into that, but high level.
So, Ron, did your parents ever wonder, you were too into this computer stuff and it wouldn't turn out to be a profession or make money doing it?
I don't know if they were worried. I think, so my parents were like blue collar. My mom's like bookkeeping, and my dad worked at FedEx for decades. And so I think it was more so that I was in my room or on a couch on a computer, that they didn't think I was actually working. But then they say, when I was younger, I get to buy my own stuff, and they're like, well, he can actually pay for stuff. So my mom was much more open. My dad was much, he's just more old school. So he was like, what is this? Get a real job. And then, yeah, once it, kind of started building up, then I don't get many complaints nowadays.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I was a nerd, built my first computer. I think that's a common narrative for us who were exposed to the technology, blue collar parents. And it's odd how that technology that first was our curiosity, our exploration, our games, our fun, all the things became part of our way to make money and provide for families and kind of live the life we want to live. It probably feels pretty good in full circle.
Yeah, no, it feels great. And I started off, so before I did websites, I did IT. So I built computers. I did tech support for family and friends and stuff. And then I quickly realized I hated that. So and sometimes, people think, oh, you're an agency, you do websites, you must do IT. And obviously we all struggle with that. But yeah, I'm very happy not to be in IT anymore. And it's just website stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it's the evolution. I actually, through university, worked in the engineering department, in the IT department. So engineering department of the university, but the IT supporting engineering, building all of the servers, all of the satellite education lecture locations. I was a nerd. I was definitely a computer kid, and that's how coincidentally my story started too. I was an accidental entrepreneur because I happen to have a blog that had tons of visitors, and people go, "Oh, you do this." And I was always a phone a friend for my older aunts and grandparents and parents about their IT
Yes.
needs. And I go, "I'm not an IT person. Um, I don't want to go into information, IS and work for an MSP. I have no intention for that whatsoever. I just really like computers and I like this digital thing." But you were probably the phone a friend for your parents, right? When the computer didn't work?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, parents, friends, family, and one of my friend's dads growing up, he called me like, "Oh, you're gonna be the next Bill Gates," and I'm like, I mean, it's okay. It's a compliment. I'll take it, but like, that's not the that's the IT route. I'm not going the IT route, but hey, I'll still take it.
Yeah. And then, of course, when we started building websites, what were you building on your first website? Was it WordPress from the beginning?
Well, no. So in 2002, there was no WordPress. That was what, 2008, or I forget when exactly WordPress came out. But
Six,
no, so
7, yeah.
was it six? Yeah. So back when I was doing stuff, it was like my initial ones before I like was doing it for clients was like it was like GeoCities, doing like fan websites for whatever like anime I was into back then.
Did you do the Dragon Ball Z website where you track the power rankings? Because I did.
So
Ron, I just
ironically,
want to make sure. I just want to make sure you know you're one
it
of us. This is a friendly
it was
space.
Dragon, but yeah. So there was probably some others in there. Dragon Ball Z was definitely one of them. And I don't know if it wasn't as much tracking the power rankings, but that was back in the day of like I don't know if that was MySpace or people like doing their own thing. So it was like an amalgamation of like Dragon Ball Z, like gifs and images and stuff, like totally on the up and up. It was on GeoCities and all that. But yeah, so that's how I originally like did my own stuff. And then once I started doing client work, it was just Photoshop, export to Dreamweaver in tables, and
Yeah,
like tweak it from there.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, the good old days. I did an internship on top of working for the university for a Kiwi commission, and their job is to represent the Kiwi farmers. And they said, "Hey, you're
Okay.
you're in marketing." I was taking business school. I was doing marketing, and I was doing all these free internships. And they're like, "You're in marketing. Build this website." So I of course, as someone who was building my own stuff, said I could build a website, and through Photoshop to Dreamweaver, built the Kiwi Commission's official website. It was my first, like, I am an intern working in marketing and I built a website project.
Mhm. That's
It's
awesome. Yeah, I
it's
mean
odd how
that's
our
how it
origin
happens.
stories are very, that's how it happens. We did not
Hmm.
intend to be these agency owners that we became.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, yeah, never any of this. Like I always had like little side quests, like making I sold on eBay, you'd buy from garage sales or flea markets, whatever, sell online or whatever. I don't do any of that anymore. I'm long past, but yeah, I've always been like a little entrepreneur, and then this is just what I'm like. Eventually, I like this is my thing, and kind of just started bolting onto that.
When we talked, you talked specifically about it kind of being accidental. So that Acquihire to kind of kick you off. What'd that look like? How did that opportunity spin up? And then why are you defining that as an Acquihire?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, at the time, and again, there was no attorneys or anything. It's just like me and my buddy, like, hey, here's the terms we're gonna agree upon. And he was basically like a freelancer contract for me. I ironically taught him how to build websites. We go back to middle school. We've been best friends forever. So I taught him how to build websites. The whole like Photoshop to Dreamweaver situation and like tables and stuff. I taught him that. He quickly outgrew that and went into CSS and like and all the actual like stuff, the more proper way to do it. And so he took over obviously my site builds and was doing a lot, and my projects were kind of getting pushed to the side because he had his own little like it was a little mini agency. I think he had like honestly it was like 8, 10 clients, something, nothing crazy, but it was enough to where like he was distracted because he was doing all the stuff for those clients.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, I'm growing. Like, why don't we do some stuff? Because he didn't like doing sales. He didn't like doing the front end stuff. Ironically, he's doing more front end stuff now. But back then, this was 2019, 28, no, 2018, 2019. I was just like, hey, just come do all your work with me. I'll absorb those clients. So at that time, I think there was a little bit of payment schedule, but I bought him out. There was a book of business on top of him coming on as more of a full time contractor or whatever, and it just kind of happened like that. Because we kind of complement each other. So he was more the back end doing the sites, and he's kind of like a chameleon. He's jumped around doing different parts of the business. We joke about it because obviously I've worked with him for so long. Whatever I don't want to do, and I don't have someone else to do it, he kind of fills that role until we can then find someone to replace it, or he just owns it. I mean, because he's very flexible. So yeah, he's still with me. He's I mean, so fast forwarding today, he's part owner in the agency as of Jan 1 of 2026. He was the creative person, creative director. You know, his titles have changed a lot, and now he's like my basically chief of operations, my left hand man I
Amazing.
call him because he's a lefty. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And you've known him since middle school.
yep, yeah. We used to like the same girl way back when, and neither of us got her. So
Uh, did you know you were doing M&A? Had you read some like business buying books, or did you just kind of like how did you formalize it? Because you still formalized it with an agreement.
yeah, I mean back then, I mean like with him, he just like we just like had a Google Doc. We were both putting stuff in, and like it was just terms. It wasn't anything like no legal jargon or anything. It's just like you know transparency. Hey, this is how it's going to work. This is how you're going to get paid out, and whatever. There was like a few scenarios we explored. And again, I didn't. I mean, I knew it was obviously like an acquisition to a degree, but then when a few more started coming in, like it's kind of like rinse and repeat. You know, you've got your system, your processes, and really you're just looking to fill the top of the funnel to get more acquisitions. So I'm like, oh, cool, I got this little system going, and I was familiar with programmatic SEO, which I won't get into what that is. And then I discovered, I think it was one of your interviews or something, and you mentioned programmatic M&A. I'm like, that sounds familiar. I'm like, I know the programmatic part, but I didn't know it was applied to M&A because I'm fully self-taught. I learn as I need to do whatever. So I like Googled. I'm like, oh shit, this is a thing. And then I obviously started diving more into, I mean, any of the content that I get. So like Walker's book, Buy Then Build. I'm looking forward to your book when it comes out. I'll grab that. And just trying to shore up my knowledge because like I don't have any formal M&A background. It's all just kind of like I'm a biz dev, sales marketing M&A now. Yeah, so I didn't know what I was doing. Well, I didn't know there was a name for what I was doing until I literally saw you mention it. And I was like, oh shit, it has a name. And I'm like, I told people, I'm like, hey guys, like my strategy for acquisitions, like it actually has a name. And I like linked to this article like that described, and I'm like, wow, okay, now I know.
Yeah. And so you did that first deal. I got you basically your partner in the business today.
Yeah.
And then you talk about this funnel that developed. How did the next acquisition and the following start coming available to you? Because when we talked, you are the aggregator of your community. People call you the buyer of the group. But like, how did
Yeah.
you become that? How did the next one start showing up for you?
hmm Yeah. So the next one I actually got gifted. I was on like a webinar for some I think it was GridPane. It's like a hosting control panel, and they had somebody talked on, and he was like the speaker was like an ex agency owner who was moving to SaaS at the time, and I honestly don't know how it got brought up. I think I was just starting to put out feelers, and he's like, oh yeah, I've got these like it's like 8, 10 clients. Like I just want to make sure they have a good home. Like you don't have to give me anything. I did sign up for a SaaS for a year or two, even though I didn't use it. But like, he's like, you could just have them, and I was like, okay. I'm like, send me the details, and so like that, I didn't even have to pay for any for or pay anything for. It was just like I was gifted a small book of business, free money. I mean, I'll take it. I forget what the numbers were offhand. It was not anything extravagant. It was like below 1,000, MRR. So that was cool. And each time I've done this, like I go through and I tweak my notes, just to make sure that like I cross all the T's, dot all the I's to come up with like again like my master system, which it's a ClickUp. It's in ClickUp now. I finally a couple acquisitions ago I put it in ClickUp so I can start to have other people help me. But yeah, so yeah, that one I just got gifted, and then the third one I actually was feeling ballsy, and I went to I won't name it was a listing online listing was an agency out in California, and that one I bought outright through like an auction format. It was a horrible acquisition. It completely flopped. But again, I've paid for my education, so that was like my first two following the Acquihire was hey, one given to me free, and then one I paid a lot for an education.
Yeah, well, you can go to Wharton and pay 100,000 to get an MBA and focus on corporate finance, or you could do a few bad deals that don't tank the shit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and obviously I hedged my bets, So I'm like, if this deal fails, like I would never do it if it would put me under. So paid for my education, and that one, yeah, that one there was one. The reason why it was bad is because there was one big client that was most of the recurring revenue. That client went a little crazy after a couple months. It was like 90 phone calls, over 100 texts within like a 48-hour period because I just asked him to politely schedule. I'm not available for call, 24/7. He went off, like he was wild, and I let him go, like threatened to sue, even though like I fired you, like they're not, I refunded him, and I mean that was the bulk of the value. And so again, I paid for my education, but deals since then have been much more fruitful.
Yeah, I mean, these are important highlights, which are you made manageable bets that expose you to a variety of different seller dynamics, and you've gotten to refine and build up your list and now your ClickUp, so you're able to evaluate opportunities faster. After the bad situation, what year? How quickly are you moving? Give us a time frame on this.
Yeah, so I had to pull up a spreadsheet for this because I lost count for a while. People would ask like, how many acquisitions have you done? I was like 12, 14. I started tracking things a bit better. So yeah, 2019 was the first Acquihire. 2021 I got gifted the one. 2022 that's when I went to market, bought that, got gifted another one in 2022, and then the rest I've purchased. I haven't been gifted any others yet, although hey, if somebody wants to gift it, I'll take it. And so yeah, bought the one, gifted. So it's two in 2022, two in 23, two in 24, five in 25, and three so far in 26. So if I kind of went through that quickly, but yeah, 16 overall, varying different sizes, structures, and like every deal's kind of been a bit unique. And then, like you said, I've kind of refined my process of like my standard offer, like when a deal pops up.
Well, let's unpack that a little bit. So every deal brings its own dynamic, seller situation. So the reason why they're looking to transition the business. You have, it sounds like a pretty clear buy box though. So you're buying things that you already have and can easily systematically add to your company, which makes
Yeah,
it
roll it
more
up.
efficient for matching. You can roll it up.
Hmm.
And then you've standardized the way to evaluate it. So the parameters by which you come up with the terms, but those terms are standard for you now, and then a way to socialize that with the seller. So just kind of walk us through the process so we can kind of be in your shoes as you've refined this over time.
Yeah, I mean, so I think starting with what the buy box, right? Like the specific targeting. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
start with help us understand. You're saying books of business, and depending on what kind of agency you have, that's a different kind of book of business. You already have a certain kind of book of business, and you're looking for more of it. What is that?
yes, WordPress hosting and care plan clients. That's our bread and butter. With that one retainer that failed, that made that deal flop, that was a marketing retainer, and so that was again paying for the education. Most deals nowadays, I don't want marketing retainers because if the previous agency did a bad job or they're just not seeing results, churn's going to be much higher there. Whereas with hosting and care, well, if you churn, then you've got to move this stuff elsewhere or your website goes down. So it's much stickier, and that's what I'm looking for. So I could still acquire marketing and stuff, but it's just approached differently because churn's a lot higher. So yeah, the buy box, WordPress, hosting, and care plan clients. Sometimes it's hosting and care. Sometimes it's just the care and hosting is elsewhere. I prefer the hosting is with the agency because again, it's stickier. US based, most of the people that are good fit for me, they're smaller. And so we were saying at the beginning, 16, but they've all been micro. So smallest that I closed July 1st was $200 a month in MRR. I consider that an acquisition. I might get the name and website. I got the book of business. Biggest was like 10,500 MRR. And so, there's a wide range there. And the reason like that's kind of my sweet spot is because once you get bigger, then like the multiples and like, you can get that bigger buyout up front. Whereas like my strategy has been like, okay, we'll figure out if you continued running the agency, take your gross minus, your high level expenses, like obviously software hosting, that kind of stuff. We come with some net, and I generally pay like a high percentage of that. Again, if it's an agency doing 1 million a year, and even recurring or not, like that's not as attractive as like a smaller guy who's like, well, hey, what do I do with these clients? Should I just shut down? No, you shouldn't just shut down. Try and get something for it. And so that's where I've kind of like not pigeonholed, but that's where I've kind of like honed in on like the best fit for me because I can give them the easy button so they can be out in a month or two max, usually like a month, and then they know that like their legacy, their clients are in good hands. They're not just like, hey, who's going to pay me the most or who's going to get this done the quickest.
Yeah, such an important lesson, which is there's a variety of types of buyers. as there are a variety of types of sellers. And there's marketing agencies that had hosting, or digital agencies that hosting in those businesses, and they're not doing hosting anymore. So where do you put these paying clients? And there's not an easy place for it. But we were talking, and people call you like the big fish in a small pond. Like everyone knows to send you their book of business if they don't want it anymore. Obviously, by doing 16 acquisitions and so frequently, people have seen you as a potential home option for them. How did that start playing? You just inundate everybody with LinkedIn messages and Slack community Discord messages from?
No, yeah, not at all. No, so it's been very well, grassroots, guerrilla marketing, whatever. It's just getting my name out there. So I don't. I'm going to start doing some cold outreach, but historically I've never done it. Basically I've kind of attached myself to some groups. The website, webmaster groups. So probably the big one would be like it's a Facebook group called the Admin Bar. It's 11, 12,000 people. It's international. Most of them are WordPress. They're my market. There's also like a paid Slack group attached to it. I'm in there, and it's I started going to WordCamps as well. Obviously, that's WordPress folk, so right up my alley. And really just like networking and talking to people. Historically, I'm extremely antisocial. I have become social because if we're talking about stuff like this, dude, I'm down. Let's talk. You want to talk about some anime? Like we can talk. You want to just like shoot the shit and stuff? I'm like, like I'm more awkward, and it's easier when it's online too. With WordCamps were an adjustment for me. So it was really just that. I also just started networking. I started doing a couple talks like a year or two ago about like how to grow your agency through buying MRR. I forget the title. It sounds cooler than I just said. So I did a couple talk, like so I've recycled that a few times, and then I got this itch, and I actually did like a little mini course. Nothing I'm sure that would shine across to you against yours, but again, at least my brain dump, so that as I start to maybe hire and have somebody help me even more, like they can see like what I do. So I put that out there. It is what it is. I've gotten some good feedback on it. It's led to a lead or two. Nothing's closed through it, but the talk that I've done, like that alone's got me 3, 4, 5 acquisitions over the past year or two. So yeah, just again putting good vibes out there, freely giving my advice and insights and stuff, and just seeing what comes of it.
That's awesome, Ron. I'm going to highlight a few things that are just impressive for someone who's not done this strategically or systematically to start. Like you're systematic now, but that's become a natural progression of your own efforts and activity. And it's just so refreshing, Ron. And I talk about there being all types of buyers. You'll be amazed at the people who go out and buy. They're introverts. They're people you wouldn't expect, because it's odd how the thing that lights you up is the M&A thing. And once you've done a few of them, it's like it's enough to push an introvert to go to live events and speak on stage, Ron.
It's yeah, it's an intense thing.
Yeah,
And it goes
it's pretty
it
intense.
goes close with sales too. Like obviously like I do all the sales, and so again I'm having to be more social with those as well. And so they, like my team says, I've got the sales magic, which again is fully self-taught. I just try to figure it out, but yeah, it's been a wild ride.
You are unique because you also have positioned your brand. So you have a website page. It talks about that you're actively buying companies. You have blog posts about it. Like you do what you should do if you're trying to be found organically and you want inbound. Maybe speak to that. When did you start really thinking I'm going to push this as a brand initiative, build a website or a web page that speaks to it, a funnel? When did that mature?
I have no idea. I'd have to log in and check when we created that page in WordPress. It's probably in the past 4 or so years. Again, it was always like organic, and then I was just like, when you kind of, being a gamer, like once you kind of find that cheat code that's just that something that works for you, and you can rinse and repeat, I was like, oh shoot. I've told people that I do this. I'm starting to get known as the guy that does that. But if you look at my website, you have no idea. So it started off back in the day. It was a very basic like sell my WordPress agency or business, and I think at the time I pulled inspiration. I think it was maybe WP Buffs or something, because I had followed their founder Joe Howard. They were doing some acquisition stuff, so it's super basic. And then over the years, like as I did more deals, and then just as I started getting similar questions and wanting to be more of like that thought leadership person for agency M&A, that's when I started doing all the blog posts and stuff. So there's like 40 or 50 something blogs I think I'm at now. And then Q1 of 2026, before I did that one talk at like an online summit, I was like, I was talking with basically my ops person. He's like, the CyberOptic website's getting a bit bogged down with all this agency acquisition stuff, and like that's not our target. It's not a target. Somebody comes to a CyberOptic, they're looking for websites. It's the end user. And so I spun up just this year, Ron Johnson. I had the domain for I think like forever. Like I paid $100 for it, which is awesome because Ron Johnson is a common name. I'm never going to get the .com. I think he's an attorney or something. But I got the .net, didn't use it forever, and then I was like, oh shoot, the C parted. It all made sense. And then I still have the sell page on CyberOptic, but then all the blog posts and like the more in-depth stuff is now on like the personal or the personal brand website, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm a seller. I found you either through the YouTube channel or your growing reputation. And I reach out to you, Ron, and say, Ron, I've got 15 clients, 7,500 in MRR. What's our next step? Do you have, you and I were discussing how systematic you were, that you've built it so others can help support you in it. Talk through that ClickUp a little bit. So talk through like the process.
Yeah, so the ClickUp process, like that's more so like once we're closing, and like all the checks and balances, crossing the T's, dotting the I's up front, just like initial like intro. Like I mean, yeah, I track it. I've got an actual pipeline for acquisitions in HubSpot, so just so I help keep things organized and follow ups. But usually I just hop on a call, or I'll ask them like, would you want me to like send over some questions, or do you want to hop on a call and talk about it? Usually they want to hop on a call just because I mean they don't want to send that. I'm some rando. They don't want to just send a bunch of random information. And even if it's not like it's no information at that point where like I could like go after their customers or like, and I wouldn't do that anyways. But it's all like anonymized, high level stuff. Like how do you run the business? You've got the 7,500 in MRR. Like what's the team look like? What's your stack? What's your hourly rate? Do you ever meet with clients? And so I've got some standard questions, Q&A that I go through. Because example, like if your clients are always used to meeting you in person, I'm not a good fit. And I can instantly say like, it's not a good fit because we're virtual only. We've got clients here in Chicagoland. That's nice. I'm still not going to meet you in person. We just don't do it anymore. There's no need. And so, yeah, various questions up front to kind of filter through like, is this a good fit or not? From there, like I'll sometimes also mention like, hey, did you check out the page? Like in terms of how I structure deals, because if somebody wants that big buyout up front, again, that's an easy like, well, I can tell you I'm not the best fit, just not how I structure my deals. So yeah, some questions, back and forth. It'll be via email or call, whatever. I keep documents just so I can, go back and refer to things. And then, it just progresses. If they're like, yes,
What's
I want to do this, then yeah, everything starts flowing.
So, given that you have standard forms, which is shorthand for templates, what level of I'm presenting you a standard form or template versus making them feel a little bit more white glove through a process? Like maybe describe the difference between that because it's important to set expectations and it's also different depending on the seller's disposition. But if you're like, I got a standard form, you submit your business details here, and it sends you an e-sign immediately. That's a little cold for someone who's buying a business. So maybe unpack how
Yeah,
you traverse that.
for sure. Yeah, no. So I would say like when it comes to like the actual templates and stuff, like that's really either A, once we're figuring out like the scope and the agreement, like yeah, clearly there's a template we customize. And then once the acquisition would actually close, yes, that's when we want the systems and processes and templates. But that initial conversation, yeah, I've got like a book of questions that I can go through, but it's not like, hey, I'm just going to send you this document, fill it out, we'll go from there. Like, yes, I've got questions I copy and paste, but it's never so impersonal or like automated up front because like similar to like putting yourself out there and stuff like that's so cold like you're saying like they want to make sure like their clients are going to a good space they can sense up like my vibes like if they don't like my vibes then their clients probably won't like my vibes so no it's very much personal and customized up front even though I have those standard questions so when they fill out that initial form or they reach out like well if they give me some information like again 7500 MRR well I'm going to remove that question when I send them follow-ups because I like they'd be like, I just sent you that. Like, why are you asking for the same stuff twice? So yeah, that's kind of how
Perfect.
I approach it.
Yeah. So A few things that are just so wonderful, Ron, is the exact playbook you're describing is the playbook you execute when you add zeros, multiple zeros to the size of the MRR you're acquiring. It's a human to human transaction. You don't ask the same question twice. It's disrespectful. You have to have continuity between the process. You should have a process. It should look standard because it helps them feel more confident in you as a buyer because you've bought other businesses and you're doing this professionally. It's not just some opportunity for two companies to do something interesting. I just love what you're executing, Ron. It's micro programmatic M&A.
Yeah, no, and it's been a fun ride. And I think one of the things that along with that, not just the systems and processes for the acquisition process itself, but like since it's their clients, if they look up, CyberOptic, they're going to see we've got like over 200 reviews. We've got a 4.9 rating. They're going to see tons of nice testimonials. And like, we work in so many different industries. So we're not like niche focused and stuff. So it's kind of just, again, you're putting your best foot out there. You're selling not just yourself, but like everything you can do. And it's like a big package that yeah, you always want to be on the up and up and all that. So it's definitely like a trickle down effect. It's trickle down effect. So it's been so much time and rinse and repeat to kind of build it up. But then now on the flip side, it's starting to pay off.
You were doing business development before you started the M&A side. What do you prefer?
M&A because the deals are bigger. Like I mean, sure. Like I was just on a call earlier today. Awesome. Like I'm great with strategy and stuff on calls. I've got my sales, magic or voodoo. It'll be probably like, $10,000-$15,000 in projects and maybe some SEO or social media retainers. Awesome. I can sell that all day. But the potential upside for an acquisition is 10, 20. Like it's so much bigger because you're not just talking about one client. You're talking about a whole book of business that then opens up, you know, that same conversation with, again, so, however many different clients. So, I mean, I love biz dev. Like that's pretty much what I'll stick with. Eventually I'll get a sales guide or salesperson to help take the load off when it is needed. But I would say M&A is my sweet spot.
Yeah, it's seductive too. It sounds like you're a consumer of M&A as much as you are an executor of it. You like enjoy the discussions, they light you up. You enjoy talking to founders. You probably get the endorphin hit when you close a deal, no matter the size.
Yeah, any sales guy does, don't they?
If they're properly constructed, that's true. So you've done 16, but you've had more in the pipeline. So share with us a little bit how disqualification numbers look like. How many made it past your first vetting? How many did you walk away from for whatever reason? What were some of the reasons behind it? And then how many did you just like, I didn't even want to start conversations with folks because we got different styles.
Yeah, so there's my win rate's pretty good. We'll start with that because usually these have been through networking, and so they're usually talking to me and like maybe one other person, maybe two. So the win rate's pretty good. I don't track all of the ones that I just like push off right away, because like there's been a few where either A, they've got unrealistic expectations. They're expecting some high multiple for some little book of business. They ended up talking with me, but then they went a different route because they did want like lump sum up front. And like there was a gentleman who's I think he was turning 73, 74, and hey, he wanted his lump sum and be gone. Like I understand it. I'm not going to take offense to that. My method's a little different. So numbers wise, I don't know exactly how many I've kind of slipped through, but usually I'd say it's because they don't like my acquisition, like the payment, how it pays out. They just want like the lump sum up front. If they turn me down, if I turn them down, like oh, I mean any of the red flags. Again, unrealistic multiple. And one guy, he's like, yeah, this, and he's got, oh yeah, I've got like two companies under here, and I'd have to be involved for at least a year or two, and I'm just like red flag, red flag, red flag. I'm like, okay, not a good fit. So, yeah, I need to get better on tracking I guess the losses there. I'm still working on it, but yeah, definitely the win rate's probably over 50% once I make an offer. It's probably like 50 to 60%.
And when you're executing a programmatic M&A model, the conversation we're having will sound a lot like any sales conversation pipeline review. It's so similar. And I'm a firm believer that founders of agencies, because they're essentially problem solvers in a special area of service, started their company, had to sell. It's a natural progression. It's basically selling as M&A. And you're just Ron, I love what you're doing. You know how I feel about the size. I feel like just add one more zero to it. It's amazing. It's the same exact process, Ron. You're the best at what you're doing, and you're self-taught. So here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to hop in a DeLorean. I want to go back to 2019, and I want to grab Ron, pull him in the back of the alley, and give him some secret advice, some lessons you've learned. What are those lessons? What are some things we could take back?
Yeah. So I think we touched upon this a bit, but well, I would have started doing more acquisitions earlier. I mean, it's just
By
like
high
anything,
school,
rinse and repeat.
Ron, high school. You started this in middle school. The first acquisition should have been sophomore year of high school.
If it would have had to have been from like another high schooler though, because I would so young back then. Like I have the full beard now, but I didn't for the longest time. I had such a baby face, So it was, it was hard initially with sales and stuff. If somebody saw me in person, because like, who's this little kid? So I don't know if I could have started it, but I would have said, hey, as soon as you can start. Maybe after that Acquihire, like, hey, start doing it right after that, because you're going to get in. I mean, just like anything, you're gonna fail, you're gonna succeed, you're gonna see what works, figure out your system. And if I could have started that earlier, well, I just would have been at least a couple years ahead of where I am now. I could have been twice as big, who knows? So yeah, definitely I just would have done more deals faster and started putting my name out there. I just didn't realize it was a thing, as until I got so deep into it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Another one that you highlighted was do more, Ron. And we had talked about you being a accelerator to your team because you're building
A little bit.
momentum. So let's talk about that, because when folks hear about doing M&A, no matter the size, you're tossing something over to a team that's helping do the fulfillment if you're doing this level of volume. And at a certain point, they're like, whoa, but this is coming at a pace that, we think could be handled differently. And it requires you to be more efficient, more effective, and systemize it. So let's talk about when you got a little bit of I'm breaking the team a bit energy, and then where you're at now and where you think the velocity is going.
Yeah. So ironically, there's been two breaking points, I would say, or two types of breaking points. So one was there was certainly a number of years where I was bringing in too much business through, direct website builds and such. And Warren, my left-hand man, was like, dude, you need to pause. Like, we literally can't fulfill this. And we can't build the team and processes fast enough to keep up with that. So there's a few times that we kind of broke that barrier or hit that barrier, I should say. And so then same thing with the acquisition stuff is, when you're onboarding, let's say 50 clients, I originally would call that hell month because there's a lot of, again, like you go from, if it's 5 or 10, it's not that bad. You go to 50, I called it hell month for a couple of them because like you're doing 2 full-time jobs. You're, saying a bunch of hi, kissing babies and stuff with 50 new clients and still running an agency. So definitely we've we've figured out both of those to a degree at this point. Our Q4 motto for 2025 was let Ron cook. And so now it's like, no, we're pedal to the metal, full speed, and we are going to probably hit another, ceiling. We'll see. For the fulfillment of actual website builds and marketing and stuff, like we're good. We were at over capacity for a lot. We were at like 140% capacity last year for our website builds because of one of our acquisitions, like the one that had a proprietary CMS. I can talk more about that. So yeah, on the website build side, we're good. And then on the acquisition side, yeah, now that I've formalized that process a bit more and we've beefed up people who can do the website onboards, it's not just me and Chris on the team. Now we've got Chris and 2 other people that can do all these onboards as well. So the goal with either is just, yeah, full speed ahead with acquisitions specifically, because that's my sweet spot. The goal I had last year was 1 a month. We're at 3 so far, and we're this month or this year, and we're in July. But after our talk, I'm like, you know what, team, we're gonna aim for 1 or 2 a month. So once I get that cold outreach going, we'll see. I mean, shoot, if those came, yeah, we could probably absorb that and see where those stress points are. Now it's just a matter of, again, filling top of the funnel, doing some cold outreach and see what happens.
You touched on a deal that wasn't WordPress. So let's unpack why you said yes to a custom CMS when you were a WordPress shop and kind of bread and butter.
Yeah, so literally every other deal I've done is WordPress, and that's our bread and butter. like I said, this was such a unique situation. And so I had a client or a prospect come in. They're a library on the East Coast, and they're like, our web design company is shutting down. We have 1 year to get a brand new website online. And I was like, what? Tell me more. And so basically, I was a company on the East Coast. They had 110, 120 websites on their platform. It was proprietary. So it was powered by Microsoft Technologies, whatever. They had like, I think it was all on one server, all these websites. And the seller had tried to sell to like the developer that he was working with on this platform. I, I don't know the deeds, didn't go through. And so he made the decision to just tell all his clients, yeah, we're going to shut down. You've gotten to like October of next year to get your new website live. His clients were specifically public libraries, small public libraries. There were a few like towns and like government websites in there, but 95+% of them were small town public libraries, which I don't know if you've worked with public libraries. Budgets aren't necessarily big. They're usually quite small, especially with smaller libraries, and they don't move quickly. So even just that 1 year timeline, like there was a number of them where it came pretty close to us not making it because we're waiting on these libraries and sometimes they have to talk to the board to get approval for all this stuff, and they're weird with billing again. So all these things that we had to deal with for the public libraries, and so I'm like, but there's potential here. Like, these clients literally they have to do new websites, and I would love to be that guy. So I went back and forth with Dale, the seller or the agency owner, and he's like, yeah, I'm coming up with a list of agencies that I want to like refer my clients to. So he should have done that up front, instead of saying like, you've got a year. He should have been, here's a year, and here's some people I recommend. So we spoke because since it was their proprietary system, it was all like the same template, and they were like minimally customized. So what I worked out, and again, we're big into programmatic stuff. So how we build and stuff. So we literally built a custom process to take sites from his platform, and it wasn't automated, but we had a starter template that was like the cheapest option on par with what he had built. It was newer, looked nicer, had more features, and it was WordPress. And so we're like, the stupid simple deal is like, hey, here's this low cost. We'll convert the website over. You get a new site, all the same functionality and more. We'll train you how to use it. And so then we made some money on the initial projects, but it was mainly I think we ended up getting 60 or 70 public libraries out of that deal. And so over that 1 year period, we built 60 or 70 public library websites. So that's why we were at 140% capacity, because we had to push through and get all those done. Luckily, again, it was programmatic, so that it was rinse and repeat for most of those. There were some upsells in there in case they wanted a different unique design or more features and stuff. And one thing we did for all them too is because we're deep into, we already worked with public libraries. So reverse for a second, that's how that initial client had found out about us. Because when I Acquihired Warren back in the day, his book of business was mostly public libraries. So again, like it compounded there. So they found us, and it just all went from there. And so there were 3 companies overall he recommended. We were the number one. He's like, hey, if you had to choose one, like go with these guys. We took most of the book of business. He got like a commission for each client that signed on, and then we just fully took over everything from there. So that was a really unique position. I don't know if that would come up again, but that was one that like I saw the potential, because you're getting the project work, keep the team busy, expand our expertise and our footprint with public libraries, because these people like in similar niches, like they talk to each other. So librarians are very similar. They have the same groups. They always look at the footer link at the bottom, which is on all those websites, or most of them. And yeah, it's definitely led to, additional projects since then, that weren't included in that book of business.
That's terrific. I kind of want to turn the final bits of this conversation into your advice for someone who is thinking about starting M&A, because you're talking about it. You're becoming a thought leader in your category. You're talking about how you're doing it publicly, like on this podcast. So if someone thinks they're too small to do M&A, what would you tell them?
Size, it doesn't matter in terms of yourself. I would say that the biggest thing with M&A and really anything is don't bite off more than you can chew. Like my first couple, like I have no idea what I was doing, but I'm very detail oriented. And so I would say advice number 1 would be start small. You don't want to go out and acquire some huge agency or huge whatever company. Start small. Kind of learn the basics, or get like a mentor that can show you, well, give you that jump start, you got to be detail oriented. So not just depending on how that buyout or how the acquisition is structured, you've got to cross your T's, dot your I's, do your research, make sure, there's no confusion, because you don't want there to be, like you don't want somebody to feel slighted or like, oh shit, so just be detail oriented. That would probably be my main two, is start small or have a mentor, and then just make sure you cross your T's, dot your I's.
Yeah, it's so amazing how your natural experience of M&A overlaps with my real comprehensive view, right? It's so lovely. We call Lang acquisitions rule number one: you buy 30% of your employee count,
Hmm.
and it's a basic ratio that helps people evaluate their first deal. And the next thing is 5 deals not to suck. So it gives people a little bit of flexibility to know that their first deals don't have to be these knockouts out of the park. You're going to learn a lot through the first few deals, like you did, getting to the third. Once you hit the fourth and fifth, you got your stride. And so it's so wonderful to see, Ron. But I wish as many people as possible can hear your story, because the advice of start earlier, do more. The other one you had to share with me was don't pay up front on companies you know you shouldn't.
Yes.
And then I added, you didn't, but you could do bigger. Because at the end of the day, I'm so impressed at what you're building, and you're so thoughtful, and I appreciate you being so transparent about the process. So Ron, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much as well.
But I do want to get, if where can people find you? If you're listening to this and you have a book of hosting or website and you want to go to the big fish in the small pond, which is Ron, how should people find your contact information? What's the best way to connect to you?
It's ronjohnson.net. So RON Johnson, hopefully people know how to spell that, JOHNSON.net. It's got all the stuff there. And I would say there's so much content there. The first step is just start the conversation. I'm never going to force a relationship, a deal, anything. I'm always transparent. So, and yeah, if you just want to shoot the shit and talk some M&A, I'm up for that as well.
Well, the invite's open. Appreciate you, Ron. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
If you like this episode, probably like one of our other episodes, click here.